Hello, Savannah. Hello, and welcome to another edition of Candidly Kesha. We are so happy to be with you here tonight just to say happy Monday. Happy Monday, as well as to see what he said, she said, and what the city said. So, first up, I want to just let you know after I give a couple of updates from our last city council meeting, I want to give you an opportunity to kind of weigh in, ask questions of some topics I present, or any questions that you want to ask your alderwoman. We are here for it all. We know that one of the primary goals of my service is to engage the public as well as educate the public and keep you informed. So, without further ado, we want to bring up a few highlights from our last city council meeting, which are inclusive of a number of things. It was a big meeting. Our workshop was at 4 o'clock. In between the workshop, we had an executive session where we discussed the package of the salary package of our new selected city manager, Mr. Jay Melder. You may have heard more about that executive session with regard to drama that was actually made up. But the most important thing is we now have a new head of our local government, and we are excited to welcome him primarily so that our staff is supported as they go about. We also had a meeting where the meeting started at 6 o'clock p.m. and we ended somewhere around 10 o'clock p.m. That's pretty long for a council meeting. It's especially long when you have items of importance on it, like our millage rate, very contentious and controversial real estate sales. And so we want to be considerate of not only our citizens' ability to gain access to the meetings, but we want to make sure we're not presenting our meetings in a way in which we make them very laborious, difficult to watch, and time invasive. No meeting should really go beyond 2.5 hours. We can control that by not overwhelming the agenda with items that cause for a lot of discussion, particularly if council hasn't been informed of those items prior to the meeting. In addition, if council has the opportunity to sort of weigh in on what we are discussing on the agenda previous to the meeting, that actually helps in the process as well. We are working to get there, and I'm hopeful that as a council with our new city manager, he will make some of those changes that we so desperately need. But we remain hopeful. So on the agenda was this whole issue of our property tax millage rate. And that's the rate that is set that will determine whether or not your property taxes will be increased. Our city manager has recommended that we keep the millage rate the same, which essentially means that your taxes will potentially go up. So that's a little bit of the trickery and the games that we play with this legislation that's guided by the state. But we have purview here in our locality whether or not we want to raise the millage rate, keep it the same, or roll it back. The only way your property taxes will be reduced is and not raised is if we were to roll it back. It would be my intent to advocate for a rollback. We did an entire presentation to our city, Alderwoman Blakely and I, last year when this came up. And so I remain committed to not ever being a part of raising taxes, particularly in the face of this COVID crisis, this pandemic that doesn't seem to want to go away and is looking to rear her head again. And so with that, we want to acknowledge that we have we had the first reading. By law, you have to advertise, and it was advertised publicly via our clerk's office. We had it on the agenda as a prerequisite to making a decision, and then at the next meeting we will vote on it. So again, I, Alderwoman Kesha Gibson Carter, will not be voting to hold the millage rate where it is. I will be voting no to that. And understand that anyone who votes no will essentially be a part of potentially your taxes being raised. And those individuals who are most subjected to that rather, will be individuals whose assessed value have increased. If your assessed value has increased, your taxes will go up. And I understand that individuals who are renters and some business owners will be adversely impacted by this. Going back to what I was saying before in justification for my decision, it comes primarily because I know that the city has received a huge bailout, that came via the American Relief Act. And in that American Relief Act, Savannah is designated for $55 million. And so the use of those bailout funds can be used for a myriad of reasons, everything from helping our local citizens with business support and rent and utility assistance, all the way to infrastructure and building and construction, specific to shovel-ready programs and projects. So a lot of liberality in terms of where we can spend those funds. I would be inclined to think that the best use of those funds, or the best allocation for those funds, should be dictated and driven by the citizens of Savannah. You should be telling us, you in our various districts, 1 through 6, you should be speaking to your district older people and telling them what it is that you want for your district. Our city current leadership, has decided, we were told 2 weeks ago, that 27 million of the 55 million has already been deposited in the coffers of the city of Savannah. So we have $27 million via the American Relief Act sitting in the bank right now. And so is that the best place for those funds? It's been said that, again, these funds will be used to retire the debt that we accrued during the COVID crises. Mm-hmm. So we want to hear from you. We want to hear from you. If there's enough to go around, there's enough to go around to help absorb the blow of any loss the city has had. But I also feel like groups, organizations, nonprofits, our faith communities, they all are a part of the larger voice in our community, and you all need to be weighing in, specifically our social and civic organizations. Please let us know what it is you all want these funds to be spent on. Also on the agenda was the approval of the city manager's briefing that was held previous to our work session. I think that was from a July 8th meeting. Approval of our regular meetings, lots of alcohol license. We are actually revisiting, we have requested of our city staff to revisit how we are allowing individuals to petition our local government for liquor license, but specifically in those neighborhoods with overlays, like the 5th district and the 3rd district, in our quest to make sure that we are protecting the corridors of our neighborhood from loitering, blight, and incidents that are pose adverse implications to communities when they have high numbers of alcohol serving establishments. You have these overlays to protect them. Well, that's good. But in our position, not only are we called to protect the neighborhoods, we are also called to protect businesses. So as of late, we have had petitioners, individuals who purchase businesses, pre-existing convenience stores to be exact, They purchase the convenience stores with the understanding and thought that they will be able to continue business as usual with regard to the full scope of services to include alcohol sales, beer and wine, only to buy the business, pay for the license, and get to City Hall, and they are denied the ability to sell because their petition for the license is denied, primarily because we are called to uphold what the residents of those communities want, which are fewer convenience stores that sell alcohol. That puts us in a bad position. It serves it's a disservice to the business owner. We have one establishment who lost almost $40,000 in product because they were not able to make the sales. He inherited refrigerators filled with alcohol, only to be told that you can't sell it. And so now this owner has to be tasked with figuring out what next. Okay, I'm going to be ready for some questions, but we also have some, let's see, what else do we have here? Petitions for zoning changes via the MPC for access to land out Little Neck Road. That was pretty contentious because this is a community. The Little Neck Road is supported by West Side residents. They already have what can we call it? This landfill situation going on out there that came before us before last year sometime. If you live out Little Neck Road anywhere, you will know that traffic is crazy out there. In addition to the issues related to the landfill, this community has been plagued by development that is out of their control because they have not been supported by the votes on council that will help them promote harmony in their neighborhood. So with that said, unfortunately, the petition was not denied, but continued. So we will be discussing this further. One of the controversial pieces here is that the petitioner, via their attorney, actually contributed to the campaign of the mayor. And one of the residents wrote in and basically expressed concern that the council essentially was being sold out to developers and their voices were not being heard. We want you guys to stay engaged and plugged in that manner. And it is my hope that our council will adopt a philosophy that we will not put ourselves in a position to vote on an item where an individual has essentially given us a campaign contribution. Why any of us will be actively campaigning and taking money right now. That donation that she spoke of going to the mayor happened in March of 2021. And so we are not certain of what that relationship is. I don't want to make any speculations, but what we do know is that it's on the books. The attorney is with the firm that contributed to the mayor's campaign, and the mayor voted on this item as he did previous items as well. And so we want to be the example that we want to see. We want to have our public have a high level of trust in us. And when that is not the case, it does both our administration, it blemishes it, as well as it does the community a disservice. Let's see here. What else? Please explain the differences among workforce housing, affordable housing, low-cost housing, and market housing. So when we talk about workforce housing, we are talking about housing that is consistent with the rate of pay that an individual is making. So we know that a certain percentage of our income goes directly to our utility bills, our rent, those expenses that keep our household running. The hope with workforce housing is that a developer, a program, or a project will be created whereby that established rate would be consistent with not absorbing all of a person's income in support of them. Speaking of workforce housing, there was an item on our agenda involving the 38th Street School. I believe that item was continued as well. This was for a developer who is seeking to turn the school into one-bedroom apartments, and the rate, it was stated that it was for workforce housing, but I'm not sure that that workforce rate, the what he quoted by way of the monthly rent for a one-bedroom apartment, is not consistent with the workforce who's in the area of 38th Street Park. Those are generally the people who are working in the downtown corridors, at the hotels, um, cleaning toilets and making beds. These people are making 10 to under $12 an hour, between $8 and $10 an hour. It's not enough. And so we also know that the complexion and the demography of the Midtown, uh, South Side, uh, the areas are changing so fast, so fast. And so it was my position not to support an effort that would essentially seek to gentrify a neighborhood. We are experiencing lots of gentrification right now. If you were to drive down the Montgomery Street corridors, if you were to drive down the MLK corridors as you are approaching downtown, you see lots of development of condominiums and hotels. These are not places that our everyday citizens will be able to afford, and these are not places. Yes, $1,600 to $1,800 a month are what those price points are for these apartments, one bedroom. And so it's really hard not to think that these are specifically designed for students, although the developer has acknowledged that he was not interested in establishing a student base. But by law, you can't discriminate against who is going to move into your properties here in our city or state. So those are some of the things that was on there as well. So while no, it actually was approved. I'm sorry. The first one was approved. Um, okay, let's see. Any more questions? I was trying to pull out the highlights of the meeting. Miss Rebecca, do you have any questions? I see you here. So we have the updates for the Weeping Time. You reminded me of that update. The Weeping Time Coalition, once again, are mobilized. They meet at Solomon Temple Church of God in Christ every Sunday at 4 o'clock p.m. on Augusta Avenue. And they are meeting primarily to raise awareness, to come together and discuss updates and ideas based on the last week's activity. It was decided, according to our administration, that the Weeping Time property is not the actual site of the largest slave sale in the history of America. So if you can only imagine 429 slaves, I just drove through there a few minutes ago as I was zooming here, 429 slaves in that area, horses, buggies. I think Pastor Small oftentimes describe it much like a tailgating. Um, it's hard to believe that it's not, especially with the account of the historians that we listen to, the actual maps, the actual historic maps identify and show that the property is what we are saying it is. But beyond that, where I stop and start with this whole Weeping Time deal is the fact that the West Side residents initially stated that they did not want the property. They did not want the property's use to change. And for me, that was enough. because as an elected voice for the people, we are supposed to listen to their appeals. And it's my intent to listen more to the appeals of the West Side community, simply because it's the most underserved, historically the most underserved community, the most impoverished community, uh, where economic drivers are concerned, affordable housing, um, lots of criminal activity in some regard they are plagued by. And so we want to make sure that we are listening to them. And this was an opportunity for our council to listen, because they listened to us last November when they went to the office and went to the polls and voted 3 of us in, myself, Alderwoman Blakely, and Alderwoman Lanier. And then on December 3rd, they voted the mayor in. So they should have had 4 votes essentially. It takes 5 votes to move something on council. 5 votes, 5 votes, 5 votes. So if you sent 4 of us to office, not that we owe you anything, we kind of do, but we at least should be beholden to you in that you gave us your vote, and we should have given the vote back to you. So all we needed was just one more vote. One more vote. But unfortunately, we only had 3 votes. Actually 4. We only had 4 votes. And that was Dr. Shabazz, myself, Alderwoman Lanier, and Alderwoman Blakely. The loss of preserving the weeping time went down on a 5-4 vote, which historically has happened since my time on council. Anything major that benefits vulnerable communities, we always lose on a 5-4 vote. We had the Rockingham Farms. They received a bond from the city of Savannah. That means they used the city of Savannah's credit card, $30 million. Eastern War, that nice property over there that's developed off to the what is that, the east end of the city hall, $30 million. That project was bonded. That's the use of the city's credit card. The JW Marriott, all of y'all flock to and take pictures and spend your money, stand there and have your family celebrations. JW Marriott was built partially on the back of the city of Savannah, $30 million. So we are extending the city's credit card since we've been in office almost $100 million, not counting the bonding issue, the bond issue for the new courthouse, although we're not responsible for it. But what more could we have if that bonding capacity that we have extended to these developers? Oh, and by the way, not only did we give the Eastern Wharf a $30 million bond, we also allowed them to create what's called a tag. We helped them to designate it as a tax allocation district. As a tag, that means all taxes generated in that area stay in that area to help develop the area. Who needs a tag more, the Eastern Wharf or the West Side? Who needs a tad more, the South Side or the Eastern Wharf? We need you to pay attention, Savannah. It's really hard trying to regurgitate this information in real time and dial it back to where people can understand and have an appreciation for it. But when we see something, we have to say something. When we see something, we have to say something. And the disparity in what we have invested in as a council versus what we have not invested in is so starkly clear, and the implications of such are the same. Increased crime. We have had more African American people dying on the watch of a majority African American council than the previous administration. What's the problem? We have not done anything to establish outreach, programs, support, policies, initiatives that would speak to reducing crime both in the short term and long term, gun violence in short term and long term, unfortunately. And then we have the additional insulting dynamics in the weeping time, where we are now tasked with having to support activists and advocates every day this week. They will be in front of Salvation Army on Montgomery Street, from the SCAD building to the Salvation Army, petitioning for the Weeping Time property. Everyone is invited to go and be a part of that, to learn more about the Weeping Time, as well as Sundays at 4 o'clock. But yes, we're just creating task force, so that's the only response we've had as of late. And as I stated before, I did not want to be too terribly critical of the task force, but surely we wanted to recognize that while they have their place, some of the task force have been duplicated from previous years. So we kind of should know what our problems are by now and know how to fix them, because it's the same problems that existed then are the problems that exist now. So I just resent the fact that we have these citizens who went to the polls and voted for us. A lot of them are elderly. You know, Pastor Small, for one, he wouldn't appreciate me calling him elderly, but this is a man who has been given a second chance at life. Just a year ago, he had a liver transplant, but he has been on the front lines mobilizing people, both old and young, to get involved and engage in this work. Pastor Gordon, who tickles me because he's not a very outwardly vocal person. And so all of this advocacy and activism makes him uncomfortable, but I think he has found his rightful place in his voice and in the name of saving the weeping time. But, you know, I think we are just not being fair to the residents of the West Side, and we want you all to support them. Again, educate your children, tell people you know about the weeping time. People who come and visit Savannah, take them out on the West Side, take a picture by the marker that's on Augusta Avenue, read the marker, as well as go and just stand in front of the property and meditate, contemplate, and imagine the atrocity that took place there in 1859. Today, the skies opened up and it poured raining as they started their march today. So we hope that was a good sign. We are looking for a decision from the state archaeological office, in that they now are reviewing the documents that was sent by our archaeologists, who essentially was hired single-handedly by our city manager without consideration of the district alderman or the rest of council. I think we just pulled an archaeological group that was on record. But given the state of our vulnerability, the controversy, and everything surrounding the weeping time, we probably should have, yes, Dr. Harris, it's greed. We probably should have had an independent study. Nonetheless, according to the letter I received, we should be learning something by August 8th, so keep your ears peeled for that. August 12th at 2 p.m. at the courthouse steps in Darien, Georgia, a press conference and a public conversation with the descendants of both enslaved and the overseers of the Butler Plantation. Imagine that. They will be coming together in the spirit of reconciliation. There will be an hour-long presentation on August 13th and a reception to keep the important conversation going at 12 o'clock p.m. at Sands Memorial Church of God in Christ. We want to be able to join in all of these activities. We are still waiting information um, from Rachel Black. I'm sorry, Rebecca, I'm fumbling over your notes here. Okay, picketing time 9 o'clock tomorrow. What else? Fairgrounds. Fairgrounds. The 5th District would like for everyone to know that they are excited to have arrived at this place where the city, as well as their district, has had the opportunity to, yes, the ancestors were weeping as they protested today. The 5th District Coalition has waited for years to have the project of the Weeping Time develop. I'm sorry, the Fairground project develop. And in the quest to develop this has also been quite controversial in that Pat Monahan submitted an RFP. Michael Brown came back. Pat Monahan was the first interim city manager we had. He departed. Michael Brown came in, decided what Pat Monahan did was not good. So we got to do it again. We did it again. And we have 3 proposals from the same people who submitted proposals when Pat Monahan was here. And now the 5th District has an opportunity, and I understand that they have submitted to our council as well as the city manager their selection or their recommendation. And so the jury is still out on how all of this is going to happen, whether or not we decide who this property will go to, or as far as development is concerned, or will it be the city manager? Will it be the council? Will it be the staff? Generally how it used to happen, staff ranks it, gives it a score, makes a recommendation to city council, and we vote on it. But it seems to be a little bit different now. And a little birdie told me that the real reason why the city manager is leaving is because the people, the company he picked, the mayor didn't want that company. So in order to deflect attention from that and the fact that some other older person acted crazy in executive session, they decided to leak a bogus story to Lou Phelps at Savannah Business Journal, citing my behavior in executive session where I was barely present and didn't say a word, didn't have my face shown, volume was on mute, not sure, except for it's easier to just blame it on the largest target. I'll take it. So I'm hopeful that the 5th District well, yeah, it is crazy. It's a lot crazy. I'm getting tired of this crazy, though. I'm hopeful that the 5th District will soon get what they are deserving of. Again, this is another district who essentially have 4 votes. Their district alderman, post 1, post 2, and the mayor. And that district was heavily involved in all 4 of us getting elected. And so we owe them. We owe them. I think you got your wish. I think you got your wish, Dr. Harris. We owe you all, Dr. Harris. We owe the 5th District whatever they desire. Now, I'm going to tell you, I plan to vote the way the 5th District wants me to vote, but I personally have an issue with the maneuvering of sorts that has taken place with the vote. I'm sorry, with the development and all of the usual and unusual suspects. And so, yeah, I think so too, Ms. Cook. I personally feel like we are in a situation where we don't want to play the game, and it's very difficult to be a part of the game when you don't consider the work that you are doing a game. Like, this is not a game for me. I don't come to the table to shuck and jive, negotiate, and build consensus, network, meander at the pool of mediocrity. And we're talking about homelessness, poverty reduction, economic drivers, crime. Like, how do we network on crime? How do we network on reducing crime? We just do it, right? How do we network on eradicating our streets of the number of homeless individuals, particularly those who are suffering from mental health issues, those who are physically ill? We have people who are on the streets who have like medical bands on their arms. Uh, we have a serious issue in our city, and so we come to the table, we talk about the issue, and we make a decision to do something about it. That's the extent of our negotiating. That's the extent of building consensus, is identifying that, yes, we have a problem. Yes, council, the city actually wants citizens actually wants us to do something about it. And so when we're not doing that, our city looks like what it looks like now. And we have been in the streets every Friday, connecting with people, seeing the hurt and pain and despair when we are doing our weekly cleanups. And surely picking up trash is nowhere near something close to creating and implementing and introducing a policy to your council, to your colleagues. We recently, finally, the city manager has acknowledged that he will give attention to the wage resolution I submitted, which essentially doesn't have any teeth to it in terms of raising the wage, the minimum wage, but it's a resolution that gives us an opportunity as a city to establish $15 minimum for anyone who works within the city. No one who works at the city of Savannah should be making less than $15 an hour. We should be the standard that we want to see. I think we can actually do better as well. But in having that resolution and establishing that base, we are essentially saying to our partners, particularly those we do business with and let use our credit card, like JW Marriott and Eastern Wharf and Rockingham Farms, we're saying to people like that, when you hire our citizens, you too adopt our philosophy of not starting people off with $15, with less than $15 an hour. You too, at Mr. JW Marriott, don't fly people into Savannah to work the front of your house while our local citizens work the back and the bottom of your house. Hire our local talent to work in upper level management within these companies so that we are investing back into our community. That is what creating community benefits look like. But for far too long, we have allowed the use of our city's credit card without any room for giving back in any way. I feel like I'm leaving something out. Any more questions that I'm missing here? Can y'all tell I'm tired? I've been fumbling around all night. I've been doing battle, fighting Lou Phelps. Fighting Lou Phelps. I think my name, for whatever reason, when it's in the airwaves, I think I can't think of that thing. What is it? Their numbers go up on the internet when they put my name and face in the paper or on the news. Their ratings go up or something. And I'm tired of being their guinea pig. So we have been slaying some dragons today, doing battle to make her know that she can't do that to me again, but you shouldn't do it to anybody again, Lou Phelps. You are really a poor example of an integral journalist. Okay. Well, I think I have rambled along. I rambled enough tonight. Jesus is probably going to kill me and say, Keisha, what were you talking about? But we're just trying to follow suit. Yes. We've been having a lot of complaints about people not coming to work, and I think Chatham County was kind of courting turning down some money. Um, they do, Ivan, they do. Um, Ms. Jones, some of the county commissioners were toying with turning down federal subsidy to help families with rent and utility expenses because they said if they got the money, the people wouldn't go back to work. But we need to look at what they are having to work for. If people are staying home because of unemployment, we have to ask the question: why isn't their check that they would work for more than the unemployment? Um, yeah, that's the problem we have to address. You know, the wages and the rate of pay here in our city, and we talk about the possibly 10% of the people who are on unemployment and don't want to go back to work, and not the 50% of people who are robbing the system, uh, big businesses who are getting far more than what people are getting on unemployment and taking advantage of the system. So we have a continuous desire, for whatever reason, to judge more harshly those who don't stand a chance in the beginning, but we don't look at what big business is doing. The fifth district needs to know everything is not about the fairground. We voted for the whole district. If we call our Alderwoman, we need you to come help us. The elderly and disabled are not living in safe places, and you need to stop asking people, do they have family to stay with? Yeah. Um, we do know that the fairground project and the development of her will benefit more than just the fifth district residents. It is a community-wide project, but when we look at what the fifth district has been subjected to by way of blight, crime, poverty, despair, and lack, we want to make sure that they have some semblance of ownership. That community needs something that will not only build them up physically, but will also feed the spirit of the community. So they are deserving of a voice and a voice of leadership so that they can dictate how the remainder of the city will benefit from that development. And you're right, we talk a lot about affordable housing for working families, but seniors, especially our seniors who are somewhat um, uh, who have physical ailments, and some individuals who are challenged with mental deficiencies. A lot of residents who were living in Chatham apartments, some of those people are still displaced. And while we are talking a lot about the lack of affordable housing for families, we also have to look at the lack of affordable housing for senior citizens. We have just as many senior citizens who are without homes as well. And I believe if if the fifth district had a choice, they would actually select, if they had to have housing, it would be for senior citizens or some type of home ownership programs there. So a lot to be decided. I don't know what district you live in, Ms. Cook, but I'm sure Ms. Pat Harris would love to entertain the conversation with you. Can you put Ivan's question back up there real quick, and then we're going to close out. And thank y'all for listening to me rumble on tonight. What was Ivan's question? Let's see. Can one blame them? Who wants to work in a dead-end job? No opportunities for advancement, 10 years later, stuck in the same position. Yes, and that's the reality of a lot of our citizens. I'm in touch right now today with a number of families I served over 15 years ago who were in my shelter, the Interfaith Hospitality Network, now called Family Promise. And those families are still struggling today. 15, what is placed on fairgrounds could impact at least 2 communities. Yes, if not 3. So we just want to be considerate of everybody, give everybody a voice, but at the same time, recognize that the fifth district should definitely have the louder voice in what they want. If we are putting recreation facilities, a movie studio, and all of those things. Remember, the residents who live in and around the area, they are going to be impacted, just like the arena with Cloverdale, Carver Village, and Brickyard. Oh, and if anybody knows anything about this, breaking news, I heard Colonial Oil was possibly owned by Greg Parker, and they said that we would flip out if we had the Parker's Arena, so that's why they did the in-market arena. But I don't know that to be true. But if anyone knows if Greg Parker owns Colonial Oil, I'd just be interested so I can continue to put the pieces together. It kind of makes sense. Listen, y'all gotta laugh at this stuff to keep from crying. Anyway, I have some more information to turn in to my attorney tonight. I got to get back to that and get ready for the Weeping Time March in the morning at 9 o'clock in front of Salvation Army. And we want to recognize that we are not protesting the Salvation Army. I, for one, will be advocating for the staff as well as the clients who are of the Salvation Army, because I don't want people who need those services to be put on the far western corridor of our city away from services. It is far better for our citizens who find themselves in a situation of need of Salvation Army services to stay somewhere close to where they are, not all the way out off of Augusta Avenue by the highway. They need to access J.C. Lewis Health Center. They need to access the Curtis Cooper Healthcare Center, DFACS, the Georgia Department of Labor, the Housing Authority. Where are all of these places? The Board of Education. All of these places they need to access is within 3 to 5 minutes of where they currently are. Yes, so the Demery family still owns Colonial Oil, but they said it was a new sale. So I'm familiar with the Demery family because they actually supported charitable efforts of mine over the years. Thank you, Miss Simmons. I'm trying. But yeah, and the bus situation is really still kind of complicated for people. So again, the protest is not, anybody's support of the Weeping Time should not be recognized as rejecting the Salvation Army's mission. I think everybody who is a part of the West Side Weeping Time advocates and activists, they would all say that they have at some point supported the Salvation Army and their mission, which is to do the most good. But if we believe that their mission is synonymous with the goals of the West Side and that property, which is to maintain it for the highest and the best use, we have to do the most good. We have to do the most good by way of the West Side residents, as well as our ancestors. So keep paying attention and recognize that the play from the playbook of City Hall is to deflect and to detract your attention, right? And so if you remember, the first time an ethics complaint was filed against me for allegedly cursing in executive session, it was during a time when we were advocating really hard for property taxes not to be increased. It was during a time when we were really exposing a lot of what was going on under the Gold Dome. And I think just before that, in executive session, the mayor kind of threatened me and told me to watch what he was going to do to me. And so that was an example of that. Fast forward to this past Thursday, I recognized the play, right? And so I decided not to play the game. So I just didn't say anything. I didn't have my face shown, my official city photo was up, and my voice was silent. And so I said nothing. I just let them duke it out, have it, whatever. And it wasn't enough for me to just be quiet for them to come back and say, that I somehow had outbursts in executive session. This attack this time, I feel, was as a result of the fact that we kind of, I think, I'm not sure the mayor wanted this pick in our city manager initially. And so as he lost footing, you have to create some scenario where you make Kesha the bad guy again, even though she didn't say anything. And then the extra added insult was to have an account of the city manager who says he never talked to Lou. He never talked to Lou Phelps, but Lou Phelps said that the city manager said that I said to him, expletive fool. And it's a group of phrases of curse words that I actually probably wouldn't put together that way. But I didn't say that either. But he denies speaking to Lou. I asked him, no, I understood what you said, Jack, the Demery family. Yeah. This man says he didn't speak to Lou. And I said, well, you had to tell somebody, right? And he says, well, yeah, I did. Well, who did you tell? He wasn't going to tell me. And I said, well, what did I say to you? I don't know. I thought I heard you say something. And I reminded him of where we were. And I said, okay, so you just made something up? You're kind of not allowed to do that. Anyways, so I asked the city attorney to speak with the reporter and tell her that he was a witness, which he was, in executive session, and say to her what you know and what you know to be true. And what he knew to be true was he was in the same meeting I was in. So he told her, and despite the fact he told her that I did not say that and your sources are wrong, you need to check your facts, she printed it and published it anyway. And so I simply asked the city attorney to submit to me in writing a copy of a memo to her, and also include information you know about the city manager, and that the city manager told you that I did not say those words to him. To date, I have, well, let me not speak too soon. He may have sent it tonight. No. To date, I have not received said letter from our city attorney. So one would ask, what would be his motivation for not wanting to put in writing in a document something that would essentially recognize that your whole, not a part of your article is wrong, but your whole article is wrong? I don't know. But what we do know, thank you so much. We are going to continue to do what we are doing. Although it's getting very tiring and exhausting, I feel my help coming on. We cannot be worried about what individuals say or what they read and are concerned with. The only thing we can do is be hopeful that at some point this council will come together, stop majoring in minor things, and focus on those issues that are most pressing to our community, which are crime, the weeping time, and our economic standing by way of the health of our citizens. And so with that, I want you to know that I'm here for it all. I'm not serving for re-election. I'm serving in this present age. I am serving today so that we can get things done in 2021. And in 2022, it will still be about you. In 2023, possibly we can talk about me, but in 2024, I'll decide if Savannah gets more. So with that said, I confidently, boldly, with excitement, say to you, thank you for allowing me to serve as your Alderwoman at large for Post 1. We will continue in that vein until God says different. Good night, Savannah. I'm going to sleep. I love you.